Pukeology Podcast, where science meets your hilarious puke stories and the tips and tricks to stop that up-chuckle that you need.
You never know what's going to spew out of her mouth. Here's
my mama,
Dr. Puke Nemo.
Why am I bleeding and pregnant? Or trying to get pregnant and bleeding at the same time? This is probably one of the scariest pregnancy questions that I, as a pregnancy doctor, actually do get asked. But I'm here to tell you the information that you need to know about implantation bleeding and so much more, all coming up in today's Pregnancy Pukeology Podcast, episode 88. What is implantation bleeding and what does it look like? Do you want no more morning sickness, pregnancy nausea, or how about no more headaches or migraines? Visit our sponsor, nomonausea.com, the only natural way to instantly stop your worst nausea, vomiting, and or upset stomach right now. Or get 25% off with the code PUKE25, that's PUKE25. Or all you gotta do is take your No More Nausea band, place it on your baby registry at Bye Bye Baby, or get it shipped for free in just 2 days on Amazon as an Amazon Prime member. Know that we got your little ones covered too. If you already have children, you can find No More Nausea Kids, No More Sleepless Nights Kids, and by the way, the No More Sleepless Nights Kids one works for moms too that can't get any sleep. So get to sleep fast, all available at your local Walmart and Meijer store. Now, do you want to hear some pregnancy humor that may just make you want to pee your pants? Like you don't have to pee all the time anyway, with hilarious stories like Jelly gave up my jelly, Goop poop, or emo mom. If you want to learn more about your pregnancy, knowledge and humor is here to help you. And we're in this to survive together. Today, you will learn the science behind why do I bleed when an egg fertilizes itself? How can that be mistaken for my period when I'm trying to get pregnant? And how to help naturally stop cramps associated with implantation bleeding. All coming up right now in Pregnancy Pukeology Podcast, episode 88. What does implantation bleeding look like? Let's find out.
The science of puke, pukeology.
So implantation bleeding, you have to understand what the word implantation actually means. Well, most women begin to suspect that they are pregnant when they miss their period. But some experiences of implantation bleeding, which happens almost at the same time for their expecting period, it is very common for women to basically think that they are having or menstruating, especially when they're trying to get pregnant. Now, this will help you to understand what implantation bleeding actually looks like and when to take a pregnancy test. So what is implantation bleeding? Many processes occur before your baby can actually attach to the thinner wall of what we call your womb and or the baby's house for those 9 months. First, one of your ovaries has to release and it has to mature as an egg into your fallopian tube. The egg then has to meet the awaiting sperm. And by the way, male sperm are faster swimmers. So again, if you drop an egg and the actual sperm ends up going in to meet it, you have a higher chance or likelihood that you're going to have a boy. Now, girl sperm, we just kind of swim around for a little while. And by that I mean you can actually get pregnant days after you have had sex. And the reason why is because the little boy sperm, they go up really, really fast to try to swim to get to the egg, but they die quickly. Girls, on the other hand, right, we're the survivors. I'm a survivor. I end up swimming. And again, as a girl sperm, they swim and they wait for the egg to drop more until that they go to fertilize an egg. So the egg meeting the sperm leads to what we call fertilization. And this happens in about 2 to 3 days, including the time that you are ovulating. So again, that's that window of opportunity when women are the most fertile. Once your egg gets fertilized, you are said to have or are conceiving, meaning you have a fertilized egg at this point in time. Now, the fertilized egg then travels into your womb to attach to the inner wall. This is usually at the very top of it, and it results from the formation of an organ that connects to your baby to the womb called the placenta. So again, The mom has a house for this baby, and then the placenta gives it the food, nutrients, oxygen, everything that it needs in order to start growing and replicating. Because remember, it's actually not a part of the mom's DNA because it's a brand new set of DNA. So just because the mom houses it does not mean that the baby is actually the same genetic makeup. It is made up of a male sperm and a woman's egg. So it's actually a completely different entity, but it gets about 20% of blood flow, just like a new organ group. So it's a very interesting that your brain gets about the same amount as a woman. So we actually end up doing double the amount of work. We work overtime when we're creating or making these beautiful babies. So the result of when the actual fertilized egg attaches to the wall creates the placenta. The placenta ends up going, and once the placenta ends up giving nutrients to the baby, then it plays a very vital role. The placenta helps with the exchange of nutrients, glucose, and oxygen to your growing baby. It is also helpful because it removes harmful waste from your baby. So again, your baby can't exactly get rid of it. It doesn't have a trash recycling plant. Unfortunately, we as the mom have to get rid of the baby's waste for them, which is very interesting because it's all self-contained. Now, the placenta also produces key hormones in pregnancy, including a hormone called progesterone. Implantation bleeding, therefore, is a small amount of bleeding or light spotting that you might experience as your fertilized egg attaches to the inner lining of the uterus. It is an early sign that you could be pregnant and perfectly normal to experience implantation bleeding. Now, some of you guys that listen to Pregnancy Pukeology Podcast, and again, I'm your favorite pregnancy doctor, but it's really important that you guys note that you want to make sure that your uterus is really... it's got its finger-like projections and it's sticky. And by that I mean you don't want to take non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. What that is are things like Aleve, ibuprofen, Motrin. If you're trying to get pregnant, you don't want to reduce the inflammation. Inflammation actually in the area is basically it's easier to catch a ball or anything when you don't have gooey greasiness on your hands, right? And so what the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories do, so if you are getting if you have a headache or whatever it is, go get normal migraine. That's just what I invented. But again, on the other hand, if you don't want to try a natural wristband that stops instantly your headaches, you can always go to something that is called Tylenol. Tylenol is a much better if you're trying to get pregnant. So FYI, not very many people will tell you that. So I just want to make sure that you guys have a heads up. And if you are questioning, getting pregnant or having infertility issues, I do have an entire podcast that's dedicated to these fertility issues. It's on episode 62. Why am I not getting pregnant? So I'll give you all those tips and tricks of the things that people just usually won't tell you. Now, what does implantation bleeding actually look like? Implantation bleeding is typically light spotting, which you may see when you wipe, right? So again, a very mild, it will be red, but again, sometimes it looks almost pinkish because it's not super, super heavy in amounts of blood. And ladies, that when you do have your period, it's kind of like brownish, I don't know, it's like a red brownish color. So again, just think of a much lighter. Now, again, sometimes implantation bleeding may be light and it's persistent flow, so you might need a little liner or a light pad. But what does implantation bleeding look like on the toilet? Now, this is where all my pregnant women get freaked out, right? Implantation bleeding might have various colors depending upon the time the blood came out of your actual body. So implantation bleeding may appear light or dark red if it comes out as a fresher bleed, like if you catch it right there at the very start of it. It may appear pink or orange if it gets mixed with vaginal secretions, because again, vaginal secretions generally tend to be like a whitish, very light, faint yellowish. So again, if you're combining red with yellow, it makes like an orangish hue. If the implantation stays for a long time, it becomes oxidized, meaning the oxygen in the air gets to it, and thus why it looks brown. So if you've ever looked at a pad from a long day's work, it literally looks super brown. That's because oxygen's gotten to it. Oxygen has gotten to the iron component within the blood. So what do early pregnancy cramps actually feel like? Well, pregnancy cramps are one of the earliest signs of pregnancy. Some women may confuse their regular menstrual cramps with implantation cramps and bleeding. Now, implantation or pregnancy cramps happen as a result of increased blood flow to your uterus. All right, interesting. Now, remember, what is menstruation or what is a girl's period is when you do not fertilize, you do not have an attachment of a fertilized egg. It then sloughs off everything and basically like mass exodus. Right? It gets rid of it. And that's what the bleeding is, that we women during our pregnancy every single month, we're getting rid of that egg that was no longer utilized and or fertilized. But implantation bleeding can sometimes be mistaken as menstrual cramps. Why? Because we get cramps. That's what happens when our uterus is trying to get rid of all that blood during our period. The difference is where the blood is actually going to. You're getting cramps from implantation bleeding as the body is giving you more blood to the actual uterus in order to give it more nutrients, more hormone secretion, and things like that. Usually implantation bleeding is mild or moderate pressure on the abdomen will help to kind of relax it down. I'll help you with giving you some really great tips in the tips and tricks section. Other early pregnancy signs include morning sickness, no mo with no mo nausea. Go pick one up. Honestly, guys, it will literally save an entire morning sickness experience. No mo morning sickness stops vomiting and nausea from pregnancy in just 30 seconds or less. NoMoNausea.com. Honestly, they are like lifesavers. Number 2, feeling a little fatigued. And number 3, breast changes. They become swollen and or tender. So again, those are those early pregnancy symbols and or signs that you should be kind of sort of getting aware of if you're seeing mildish bleeding. Now, what does early pregnancy discharge look like? You may notice that usually you have vaginal discharge even when you're pregnant, but when you are pregnant, the vagina will start secreting pregnancy discharge that is usually sticky, a pale yellow, or white type mucus. The pregnancy discharge helps prevent having an infection during your pregnancy. So it's your body's way of basically protecting itself from the outside. Right? When a penis goes inside the vagina, that's coming from the outside, right? Coming inside of our beautiful little vaginal ecosystem. So what happens is when you are pregnant, it wants to avoid infection at all costs because an infection down there could potentially result in a baby having an infection as well, and then you'd have much more complications. So it creates kind of like a barrier. Think of it like almost like a mucus cloud. So you'll be seeing a lot more mucus secretions when that happens. Now, if you do notice a burning sensation when you're peeing or itchiness or it smells real gross or like fish or whatever it is, it's important that you come see someone like me, a doctor, right? Because that's not normal. You definitely don't want to have an intense odor about it because that could symbol that you also are at your immune system is compromised a little bit while you're making this baby, and your body does that naturally. Again, I have an entire podcast on that if you're really interested as to why is it that your immune system decreases. But it's very important to note that when you do see signs of, I got something reeks, something stinks, right? You want to make sure that you go to the doctor, especially soon, to go fix that. We can treat that with things like antibiotics and or give you antifungals. So what does a positive pregnancy test look like? Most pregnancy tests detect the HCG hormone that is either in the urine and or the blood. Now, HCG is human chorionic gonadotropin hormone, and it's produced when your egg gets fertilized and attaches to the inner lining of your womb. And for this reason, it starts to present itself and tells everyone, hey, you're pregnant. The level of HCG can reach detectable levels between 7 to 12 days after you fertilize the egg and it implants to the womb. And this I'm talking about like blood, whenever they go to take blood. But you'll notice that most home pregnancy tests will show a positive pregnancy test, those 2 lines and or the word pregnant. Again, if you have 2 lines, that means you're pregnant. If you only have 1, it means you're negative because it's a control to make sure that the test is still working right. In addition, the kit may show a faint line, which is possible or highly possible that you are pregnant, and they usually say can detect pregnancy within 2 days before your missed period or 7 days. You'll just have to check the box because again, it gets more and more and more sensitive by all of these incredible pregnancy test companies. Alrighty, here we go. That was a lot of like information and science, nerdy stuff. Now let's get to some hilarious puke stories.
Throwing up on a Tuesday? One puke story.
I'm 8 weeks pregnant at the time, and my favorite morning sickness remedy was butter toast with strawberry jelly before my ultrasound. I was so excited to see my baby for the first time. I made sure to have a full bladder, and man, did I have to pee. I asked my husband to hurry to the OB office faster because I really had to pee. They laid me down on the cold table, and the sonographer's jelly was on high heat. The second it hit my abdomen, it felt so warm that I couldn't help it. I let a little pee out. After I felt it drip down my leg, I started puking my breakfast because it was so gross. I wasn't ready for all that jelly. Destiny, that was a hilarious puke story. Thanks for sharing. I was super gassy my whole first trimester, and the smell of even my own farts made me nauseous. Every time I used the bathroom in the morning, I had to keep a trash can so both ways were protected. I went for my first OB appointment, and it was the ultrasound time. The sonographer shook the bottle of goop, and it made the loudest fart sound. I immediately got sick all over my own stomach. The sonographer jumped up out of the way and I couldn't tell that she didn't want to do the exam after what she witnessed. Jackie, thank you so much for that hilarious puke story. I went to find out what my baby was going to be. It was my husband, my mom, my stepdad, and my aunt that were all there. We were all so excited. Now, they knew I was a ball of emotions. I would cry so hard at Kleenex commercials that my nose would run, hence leading to the postnasal drip, the nausea, and the vomiting. We first heard the heartbeat, which started the waterworks. And before anything else, the 4D image of the baby looked like Skeletor, all the bones, and I thought there was something wrong. So I started crying louder. As everyone tried to console me, the vomit snot came next. Let's just say that no one but my husband came with me on the next gender reveal. Thanks, Chris, T-Mom. Do you have a hilarious puke story or pregnancy story that you just can't wait to share it with me? Because I know there's 50,000 of you incredible pregnant women, now up to 70,000 that listen to Pregnancy Pukeology Podcast. Please send it to me, your favorite pregnancy doctor, Pukeology, Pukeology, at nomonausea.com. That's nomonausea.com. Or tweet me at Pukeology so we can all have a good laugh.
Tips and tricks to stop the up-chuckle that you need.
So, how to relieve cramping during pregnancy? Aches and pains seem to be overtaking your life as a pregnant woman, but it doesn't mean you just have to live with the pain. Here are 7 incredible ways to help you to get rid of cramping during pregnancy. And you know they have to be natural because you can't just start taking a bunch of medication. You're pregnant. Number 1, take a warm shower will help to chase the cramps away. Warm showers help to loosen the muscles and cause vasodilation of your vessels, which means you have more blood running through your body to get the healing cells that it needs to. Avoid using heating pads on your abdomen, particularly in the first trimester though. So again, nice warm shower, not the heating pad, okay? Number 2, stay hydrated. Drink 8 cups of water every day because cramps are a result of an electrolyte imbalance. Try eating water-rich foods like cauliflower, spinach, peppers, and carrots. They all actually have a lot of juicy water in them. They also provide vitamins and minerals. If you get super bad cramps and nothing will work, squirt mustard in your mouth for a surge of potassium electrolytes, and the cramps will subside momentarily. That's actually what they use on athletic fields and like football fields and stuff like that when they get really bad muscle cramps. And people are always tell you, oh, eat a banana, it's got potassium. Take a shot of mustard. It's the only shot that I will tell you that you can have during your pregnancy, okay? Number 3, get some magnesium. The lack of magnesium in your diet can have a negative effect on your body's muscle and their ability to relax. This means that your muscles will want to stay contracted or in a state of cramping if it doesn't have the magnesium to let it go. Talk with your doctor about switching your prenatal vitamins to one that has a higher magnesium source, or they may just make you want to prescribe or get prescribed magnesium itself, like a magnesium pill that you need to take every day. Remember to get more natural sources of magnesium, because your body is able to digest natural foods with the nutrients that you need far easier than anything else. And magnesium-rich foods include walnuts, bananas, and dark chocolate. Yes, girls, I said dark chocolate. Eat more dark chocolate. It's the doctor's order, okay? Too much of anything is not good, but I'm giving you the leniency, especially during your pregnancy. Number 4, stretch daily. Stretching helps to relax the cramp muscles, and it also is a great way to prevent cramps from occurring in the first place. Stretching is an act of lengthening your muscle fibers so that they are less able to contract in cramps once that they're much more flexible. Remember, like a rubber band, as you are able to stretch it, a stretchy rubber band has a decreased risk of snapping. Right? So what do you think is a cramp that is happening? Well, just like bodybuilders are trying to build up their muscle, they go and right? It's just their muscles are so tense that they snap immediately, and then making the muscle is actually the bow tie and or the tying of the actual muscles. That's what gives, the gun show more men, like these bigger muscle groups, because they're breaking them, tying them, breaking them, tying them. And what happens when you keep knotting them, right? It forms this nice big muscle group. So that's muscle, and that's a quick little lesson on physiology. You're welcome. All right. So stretching is an act of lengthening your muscle fibers so that they are less able to contract, cramp, and once they are much more flexible. Remember to stretch after physical exercise because your muscles are very, very vascular, meaning in pregnancy, they have a lot more blood flow whenever you're moving them. Okay. And the muscles are worn out and they're nice and warm, so they can stretch a lot farther than normal. And your muscles have what's called muscle memory. So if you are flexible, you will be able to continue that flexibility. That's why people who start yoga are really, really good at it. All right, number 5, elevate your legs while you're sleeping. Bringing your legs above the level of your heart helps to increase blood flow back to the heart and decreases the lactic acid, which is what muscles give off when you're cramping and or you have sore muscles. You've worked out super hard, you know that feeling, okay? This buildup is also what can potentially cause even more cramps to happen. So place 1 or 2 pillows underneath of your knees also helps to take pressure off your low back. So you get a BOGO on a relief. You get back pain relief, and you get much more blood flow coming back up to your heart. Number 6, sleep. Fatigue, the lack of sleep, can increase the likelihood of muscle cramping, okay? As a pregnant mom who used to get woken up in the middle of the night with the worst, terrible, feet cramps, they would just, they would cramp up so bad. They would wake me up out of a dead sleep. And I'm not a napping person, but when I was pregnant, I just needed to nap. I was exhausted. Getting uninterrupted sleep, again, is super crucial, but if you can't get uninterrupted sleep, then just get 20-minute naps here and there so that you get a grand total of those 8 hours that you're really looking for. 7, prenatal massage. I need one right now. Any masseuses out there? A massage is good for the mind, the body, and the soul. Massages actually increase the blood flow and gets rid of that lactic acid buildup and keeps those muscles, tendons, and ligaments nice and relaxed. Loose muscles decrease their ability to cramp. You don't have to buy a massage. You can also do it for yourself, for your feet and legs, especially at night before you go off to sleep. If you're worried about your cramps, seek a doctor's intervention if they get too bad. But usually these 7 cramp remedies listed will help to stop cramps even before they start. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this Pregnancy Pukeology Podcast, episode 88, and just letting you know why are you bleeding, or what is implantation bleeding, and even what is implantation. So you should know what implantation bleeding is and what it's not, the differences that you have learned as to what color comes out of the vagina, and then last but not least, 7 incredible remedies as to how to make your cramps stop naturally. If you love Pregnancy Pukeology Podcast or you love me, please give me 5-star hearts or ratings or likes or whatever you do. And don't forget to download this episode. More importantly, share it with all your Prego friends. Thanks again for listening to Pregnancy Pukeology Podcast, episode 88. What does implantation bleeding look like? See you next time.
Pukeology Podcast, edutainment at its finest.